Why on earth would Guts, or more precisely a character like Guts, be the perfect protagonist for a Fire Emblem game, specifically a player-created avatar? The answer to that question is rather long, but allow me to break it down to its core idea. In a series that tends to put heavy emphasis on friendship, loyalty, and the bonds formed between comrades during times of hardship, a character that has seen said themes fail and get tossed aside at a critical moment could not only help lead to a compelling story, but alleviate many of the issues that crop up in regards to player avatars like Robin from Awakening and Corrin from Fates. Simply put, a character who has seen the world's darker nature, who has seen the bonds of fellowship fail, who is rather distrustful of his newfound comrades and in turn is distrusted, could, if done properly, be the perfect counterpoint to the reoccurring themes of Fire Emblem that gives said themes more depth. It's one thing to believe in the power of friendship when it isn't tested or barely tested. It's a whole nother to do so once again after witnessing it fail. The player characters in Awakening and Fates, Robin and Corrin, are simply put, not good characters. Robin fares far better than Corrin in this regard. However, this mostly stems from the fact that Robin is more or less a side character during a large chunk of the game. The problems that I'm going to bring up when talking about Corrin often apply to Robin, however the impact said problems have are mitigated or lessened due to not being the main character. If anything, Robin's biggest fault is the overall lack of character development. Corrin, on the other hand, is a giant mess, and checks off a lot of boxes that come with being a self-insert Mary Sue. Hear me out here. He's overpowered in relation to everyone else, and receives power-ups out of the blue with little to no work involved, as witnessed with Yato, and all the stuff that happens with that. Everybody loves and trusts him right off the bat, and the few that don't are either unrepentantly evil or more akin to spurned lovers, as witnessed with the siblings you don't side with in either Conquest or Birthright. It also doesn't help that many of the characters in Fates can't help but talk about Corrin even in supports they have with other people. The final reason I call Corrin a Mary Sue comes down to how the story does whatever it can to prevent portraying Corrin in a negative light and suffer any real consequences for his actions. Case in point being a moment in Conquest where Corrin lets Hans slaughter a village of innocent people. Corrin decides to take the coward's way out and do nothing about it, but the game does its damnedest to tell us Corrin had no choice in the matter because Garon, would kill him if he defied his wishes. The game went out of its way to wipe away any consequences Corrin would have to endure in regards to his choice. And make no mistake, that was a choice. The issue with Corrin, and Robin to a lesser extent, is the story tries to portray them as always, well, too often, are in the right. It doesn't really give them any flaws that they have to work through and overcome. Sure, Corrin is too trusting and too naive, where have I heard that before? However, these flaws are utterly meaningless within the context of Fates, because Corrin rarely, if ever, suffers any consequences related to said flaws. Also, said flaws are reliant upon other people being awful, not Corrin, which once again wipes away any accountability the character should have when things backfire. The aspects that made Robin a better character, at least to me, are twofold. The fact he was still a side character who was still relevant to the plot, and his role as the army's counselor/mentor. He was the brain where Chrom was the brawn. Though his character was flat, Robin complemented the rest of the cast rather nicely until Awakening's story got, well, until it got. In a way, my idea for Guts being the perfect player character in a Fire Emblem game comes from my response to Robin and Corrin, basically applying what worked with Robin, that being a side character that's relevant to the plot and serves as a mentor-counselor figure, basically having a different perspective from the rest of the group, while also doing the opposite of what didn't work with Corrin. Instead of being overpowered with power-ups coming out of nowhere, being a hero of destiny, this theoretical character is cursed and has no destiny to speak of. He's the struggler. Instead of being beloved by everyone and very trusting, this character would distrust and be distrusted, at least for a large portion of the game. Things like that. Now, before going forward, I want to provide a bit of context for who Guts is as a character for those who haven't read or watched Berserk. I specifically want to touch on the lead up to what made Guts the Black Swordsman, the Golden Age arc. Some rather mild and vague spoilers incoming. For all intents and purposes, the Golden Age arc is an offbeat Fire Emblem plot. Yes, I mean this seriously. You have Griffith, the leader of a mercenary company, who is more or less the lord of this setting. He is using the conflict between two nations, Midland and Tudor, to rise through the ranks of society in a bid to become a king. He leads his army, the Band of the Hawk, into countless battles and comes across the mercenary Guts. After fighting, talking, then fighting some more, Guts is recruited into the Band of the Hawk by Griffith in a similar vein to a Fire Emblem recruitment conversation. Admittedly, it's a bit more, let's just say offbeat. To truncate things as much as possible because Berserk is thick, Guts, a distrustful man, begins to open himself up and becomes friends with those in the Band of the Hawk, including Griffith. Well, with Griffith being the standout. As time passes, Guts becomes one of the company's leaders, and a famed warrior of impressive skill. At one point, he was able to fight off and kill 100 men on his own, and survive a confrontation with a warrior who literally made a deal with the devil. Or 4 devils in this case. Then, around the time the war between Midland and Tudor ends, Griffith is raised up to nobility. This leads to the final battle, which ends the war proper. After said battle, Griffith and the Band of the Hawk are raised even higher in status. Then, at this point, things get crazy. With a desire to find his own dream, Guts decides to leave the Band of the Hawk. This decision screws Griffith up something fierce, resulting in him betting the Princess of Midland. The King of Midland finds out, then imprisons and tortures Griffith, and declares the Band of the Hawk traitors. Guts learns of this, finds the band once again, and sets out to free Griffith. After fighting, but this time killing, another warrior that made a deal with the devil, Guts and gang free Griffith. Up to this point, Guts' personal story is one which seems rather at home in a Fire Emblem game. A distrustful, purposeless man meets the charismatic lord and joins him on his quest. Along the way, he opens up, makes friends, and becomes a better person. This would be a critical aspect to the theoretical player character, this rather generic character arc that happened in the past, because it perfectly sets up and explains why the individual in question is such a dick at the game's start, especially when you consider what happens next. Following Griffith's rescue, an event known as the Eclipse occurs. Basically, Griffith and the rest of the Band of the Hawk are transported into Hell via an item known as a Bailet, an item which Griffith has had since the beginning of the Golden Age arc. An item which sounds remarkably close to the name of the main character from Three Houses. Just, something I kinda wanted to point out. It's a bit foreboding. While in Hell, Griffith comes face to face with the God Hand, 4 evil godlike beings of immense power. They offer Griffith the chance of becoming the 5th member of the God Hand in exchange for the souls of his friends. Griffith decides to take the God Hand up on this offer, resulting in the deaths of everyone in the Band of the Hawk other than Guts and another very important character known as Casca. A lot of dark things happen during this event that I'm just gonna glance over. However, Guts and a mentally broken Casca are able to escape Hell with aid from a being known as Skull Knight. Following this event, Guts, jaded, bitter, and angry, sets out on a quest of vengeance and becomes the Black Swordsman. This moment right here would make for an amazing basis for a player character in a Fire Emblem game for a few different reasons. The first would be relevancy to the plot. This theoretical character knows the larger, more paranormal threat that is coming, and has personal motivation to see it destroyed. The second is the character's unique circumstance. He's seen friendship and the bonds of fellowship fail. He's been betrayed by his best friend. it would make his interactions with the others far more interesting and serve as a gateway to darker, more morally ambiguous outlooks on life. It would complement the reoccurring themes of Fire Emblem by challenging them. Then third, it can act as an interesting explanation for why the player character is a fish out of water, which does not include amnesia. Depending upon how the character escapes hell, perhaps they are in a country or world different from their own. They have a past they don't want to talk about, but they don't have any knowledge on where they are because they don't know where they are. So, to summarize, the reason Guts would make the perfect basis for a Fire Emblem player character comes down to his personal connection to the threat at large, and his outlook on life. He doesn't have to be the main character, the Lord, to have relevance in the plot, and has his own motivation for sticking around, which is easily understandable. He wants revenge. Also, the way he views the world, and the fact he was betrayed by his best friend, could add a lot more depth to the reoccurring themes of Fire Emblem by challenging them in a sensible way. Also, he has a pre-built character arc that involves relearning how to trust and let others in, something which wouldn't be possible if he was like Corrin, where basically everyone loved him from word go. I do want to state that this isn't the only way to make an interesting or cool player character for a Fire Emblem game. However, I wanted to share the potential I saw in Guts because there seems to be a fair amount of overlap in the fanbase, at least from what I've seen. To kind of go along with that, this would only work in a game that was willing to challenge the player character, something which really didn't happen with Corrin or Robin, and some of Fire Emblem's more prominent themes. If the game doesn't, then it just will not work, and the character is just going to come across as a stereotypical edgelord, something which Guts, it's something that he just isn't. With 3 houses just around the corner, Fire Emblem has been on the mind lately, hence this video. I think the direction being taken with Byleth, that being making him a teacher, is a good one, because it fills an archetypical storytelling role, that being the mentor. I'm interested to see what's done, and I think this direction could work, though the anime boarding school angle is a bit weird. Also, the only reason I bring this up does come down to Byleth's name. It sounds very, very similar to Byleth, as I mentioned earlier, which kinda concerns me due to the fact the character used to be a mercenary. Just a little thing I wanted to throw out there. But, with that said guys, to all those who are new to the channel, hello, I'm Boofire, I make stuff. It's a weird time being with me. But tell me what you thought about this video down in the comments below. I do have 2 more Fire Emblem videos in mind. One of them is me pitching a story using this character based off of Guts as a basis, and then another one where I basically state that Fire Emblem should take some mechanics from other games. Let me know if you're interested in seeing that. To those who've been with the channel for a while, the Galen story, Starkiller, that's going to be coming eventually. Something else came up, which I want to address, but it will be up soon. It'll be up by the end of the month. There'll probably be multiple parts, so do not fret, do not worry. But with that said, guys, I've been Boofire101. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'll see all of you next time. Goodbye.